think I'm not really come to these events to sell anything. I just more talk because that's what I like to do. So I got around to most of you, I think, and it was just a really wonderful gathering of women. So thank you very much for having me here. So that was a good introduction about what I want to cover today. I only have about 15 minutes. I'm going to try to stay to that, but usually when I do this, I talk for a lot longer. So I'm going to try and give you the little nuggets that I hope you can at least take one thing away from what I say and start bringing it into your own life. So I'll start off with a little story about, sort of how I got here. I don't know about you guys, but I always knew that I was here to change the world. When I was really young, I had a very close relationship with my grandmother, and she had this, ridiculously large collection of robes and silk nightgowns and that kind of thing. And my sister and I would go over to her house, and we'd get all dressed up. And she had this really long staircase with this really ugly gold plush carpet, and we would walk down, at 5 years old with the... And she would sing to us while we were walking down. She would sing, it was, there she is, Miss Canada, here she comes to save the world. And she would do it over and over again. So I always knew I was descending upon you guys to change the world. The other aspect of that relationship, though, in our family was that all the women in our family suffered from one degree or another from what we would now call an eating disorder or an body image disorder. And so I was sort of raised with this idea that I had one voice, which was the who I am voice, and who I am is here and is amazing, and I'm here to change the world. And there was the other voice, which is the what I am voice. And what I was taught was that was a very important voice, and I needed to be a certain size or a certain shape, look a certain way in order to be enough. And I think for the first part of my upbringing, I listened to the who I am voice quite a bit. When I was in middle school, I clearly remember sort of excommunicating myself from the popular group to hang out with the people who I could be myself with, And I remember very, very clearly the day that changed. When I was 15, my parents sat down with us just before I started grade 10, and they said, we're going to move to Ontario. Now, I grew up in southern Alberta. And grade 10 is a hard time to move because you sort of have a lot of roots, right? And so that's what we did. They sold everything we owned. We packed up the Suburban with a 200-pound St. Bernard and 2 rabbits named Taffy and Coco, and away we went. And so I started my first day of grade 10 in a sort of large, 4 times the size of my regular high school in suburban Ontario, dressed like I would have at my high school in southern Alberta. Now, my high school had 300 students, and we had a rodeo team. So, So I was wearing some very fancy Roper boots with skin-tight pastel patterned jeans and a matching striped collared shirt, and I wanted to die. And that was the flipping point for me where I remember going home and throwing out everything that I owned and everything that I had been, and demanding that my parents, who had no money because they weren't even working, we'd just moved there, and buy me an entirely new wardrobe. And so this was where I sort of came from. And as I got into my 20s, that what I am voice was very, very strong. And I have experienced and experimented with every eating disorder under the planet and every diet program and every fitness program that's out there. In my 20s, I did it. And I was very, very sick at one point. Through all of that, I'm a sucker for punishment, so both of my careers have been in food. I worked for the government in food supply and food production, and now I'm a naturopathic doctor. So what I found when I started practicing with women, most of my practice as women, is that I would sit down and they would tell me their stories, and I mean, I could see it so clearly. They were just these amazing beings who had so much to give, and yet they were stuck or they were struggling, and it was always the same sorts of things, and it was this what I am voice, and it tends to take the form of, it's a little different for everyone, but it seems to take the form of, there's a lot of stress and confusion around food. So what's healthy, what's not healthy, what should I eat, what should I feed the kids, even resentment perhaps towards caretaking for those of us who have a lot of responsibilities. And so there's all of that, and then this idea of what I look like, and I need to go to the gym, or what does my ass look like? And, oops, sorry. In these Lululemon pants. Whatever. Sorry if I swear. I try not to, but I was talking to someone about this earlier. I get excited. So that's right. You're the Reverend that swears. I remember that on YouTube. I realized that I was not alone in my story, right? And that most of us have some level of this experience, and we're on different, maybe different levels or different proportions. But if I ask a woman in my practice, and certainly in my own life, how much time of our day we spend thinking about something in that spectrum, it's 70 to 80% of our time. And I sat there and thought, how on earth are we supposed to go out and change the world and live our purpose and be so amazing when we're spending 3/4 of our time worrying about the size of our ass and what we're feeding the kids for dinner? And so this place that was taking so much headspace in my own life, I was like, I need to change. And I believe that I've come to a place now where the very thing that I struggled with has become the place of power and the place of fun and the place of excitement, and that is what's on my plate. So my logo on my website, or my is change your plate, change your life, change the world. So what I want to do is I want to go through very quickly the 6 different areas that I work with, and I hope that one of them for you resonates and that you can start to bring that into your own life. So when we talk about health, what we're really talking about, especially in a room like this, is we know that it's health of the body, it's health of the mind, and it's health of the spirit. I also always add to that health of the environment, because a healthy individual on a dying planet doesn't do us a lot of good. And so we'll start with health of the body first. I'm very, very opinionated about this, so forgive me. And if you want to debate me later, please come debate me later. I love to talk about this stuff. But I am 100% believe that the foundation of physical and, in a large part, mental and emotional health is what you are eating. The research is there. It's not really up for debate. It hasn't made its way into conventional medicine, but that's because your family doctor only got 6 hours of elective nutrition in his education, okay? But it's true. The research is there. We know that what you are eating is the foundation for your health. You can do everything else on the planet, supplements, IV therapy, energetic work, or whatever, but if you're not feeding your body, there's a problem. And I believe that, maybe health of the spirit is the most important, but we are here to do work. You are here to do your work, and if you don't have a healthy body, you can't do your work. So then the question becomes, what is a healthy diet? And this is where people debate me. But we have 60 years of research and experience in this. And what we know is that for the bulk of human history, most of our calories have come from whole plant-based foods. If you go back for however long you think we've been here, and I don't care where you are on the religious or political spectrum, whatever, however, we know that the most of our calories came from what the women and the children and the elderly were gathering, the roots, the seeds, the nuts, the fruits, and the vegetables. And every once in a while, a dude would go out and get lucky, and they'd bring home a whole bunch of meat, right? That's what we ate. And I always laugh with these people who promote paleo diets and everything else, and the idea is there, but believe me, we were not eating 10 ounces of meat a day any other time in history until right now. So I do promote a whole food plant-based diet. That looks different for different people, and that's okay, but that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about health. We're talking about real food and mostly plant-based. So when we're talking about health of the body, we know that if you have heart disease and you switch to a whole food plant-based diet, you will not only halt your heart disease, but you will reverse it. There are clinics, cardiac clinics in the United States, and that's all they do. We know that, we would decrease the number of cancer deaths every year by 20,000 people in Canada every year if people switch to a whole food plant-based diet. We know this. So the research is there. The next area that I use food in terms of healthcare is the area of the mind. And I don't really have to explain a lot of this to this group, which is wonderful, but there's 2 places that I think it's really important. And no matter what you decide to eat after listening to me, you can do these 2 things. So the first is mindfulness or meditation or awareness or however you want to word it. We know from all of the studies and from our own experience that a mindful practice is crucial to mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And the research shows that 20 minutes of meditation in a day of any kind has unparalleled health benefits. There's not a medication in the world that can touch that. What I usually hear, and I've used this excuse so many times, I get in my practice, is that I don't have time. So what I started asking patients to do, and what I do or try to do in my own life at least once a day, ideally every time that you eat, is take that moment as an anchor to be mindful, to spend 10 minutes actually paying attention to what you're eating, how it tastes, what you're doing, and take a few moments to breathe, sit down and eat that meal. If 20 minutes a day of meditation has tremendous health benefits, then doing it 3 times 15 minutes every day, it will have a tremendous health benefit. The other thing is it also really helps your digestion and a whole bunch of other stuff. So the second place in terms of mental health or health of the mind is gratitude. I really, really encourage people to bring a grace practice back into your life. It's something that we used to do as a culture very regularly, and it's something we don't do anymore. And the idea here is that we know that if you hook someone up to an MRI machine and you look at their brain, and then you ask them to write down 3 things they're grateful for every day for the next 21 days, and then you look at their brain again, you have rewired that brain for positivity. It happens. It doesn't matter how old you are, it happens. So if you use food as an anchor to sit for 2 seconds before you eat and call to mind anything that not only makes you think about gratitude, but actually makes you feel it, you will rewire your brain to see potential. You will rewire your brain to see positivity. We have brains that are wired to protect us, so they're always looking for all the stuff that's going to kill us, that's bad, right? That's survival. We live in a time where we need to rewire our brains to look for positivity, and I always feel that food is the perfect place to start that. And it's a very easy practice that everybody can do. The next place that I like to approach is the spirit, and there's two crucial areas that I think food plays a role. The first is community. I think that we have lost a lot of, or we've sort of become disconnected from our communities. And again, all throughout human history, food has always been the center point of our traditions and our gatherings. I don't know, for those of you who are internet savvy or spend too much time on there like I do, there's a commercial out there right now that has a young girl who's, looking around her day, and everybody's on their phone, and nobody speaks the whole day. And she goes home to her apartment, and her roommate has got her iPhone and her iPad and her computer open and her earbuds in, and she just throws her bag in the air. She's like exasperated. And the next scene, they bring all of the tables and chairs that they have in their apartment and the side tables and everything, and they bring them out into the hallway. They live in an apartment. And they sit down with their dinner, and there's 4 extra chairs. And then a family comes home with their dinner, and they're sort of like, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we're fed up with this, so come eat dinner with us. And, over the course of the commercial, everybody comes out, and all of a sudden the entire apartment complex, and most of them have never met each other, and they're all eating together. That's what food does. And because it becomes a source of stress or shame or anxiety for so many of us, we've just disconnected from that. We don't spend time together. So I believe that we can use food as a gathering. If we change our opinions about it, if we change the way we feel about it, it becomes a place of strength and compassion as opposed to a place where we don't feel very good inside. The second place in terms of spirit, I don't normally bring up because I figured that most of the people that would stay would be the practitioners. I'm going to talk about it. I firmly believe that when we talk about karma and we talk about energy, and in this room I can do that, we have to think about where our food is coming from. Over the years, I eventually developed where I only eat a whole food plant-based diet, and that worked for me. But part of my decision had to do with the fact that having worked for Agriculture Canada in commercial livestock production for so many years, I could no longer ignore the fact that I was participating in what I consider to be a genocide. I am not talking about local farmers. I am not talking about grass-fed beef or happy cows or anything like that. I'm talking about commercial livestock production. It is an injustice. And as an energetic practitioner, I just ask you to consider looking at where your food is coming from. Consider the energetic and karmic imprint that that's having on our planet. Look into the research, watch the documentaries, and then make a decision for yourself. The last thing that really hits me hard is the planet and the environment. There is nothing that you do every day that has more of an impact on the global economy and the global environmental situation than what you're eating. I grew up in the era where environmental protection was a big deal, and they drilled it into us, and I never leave a light on, and I always turn my tap off when I'm brushing my teeth, and I'm a chronic obsessive recycler, all of that. When I found out that just 1/4 pound of commercially produced beef takes 660 liters of water to make a 1/4 pound hamburger, I was like, oh, I could turn off the tap till I brush my teeth till the day I die. That's 2 months of showering straight for the average person. It didn't make a difference. So what we eat has a tremendous impact on the environment and on the economy. And it's something that you do every day anyway. So I challenge you to look into the statistics. We know that 14% of all greenhouse gas emissions come from livestock. There are 80 billion animals that we slaughter every single year. That's a lot. And so we need to look at that as people, especially as energetic practitioners, and understand that what we're doing every single day not only impacts our health, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, but it is the most tremendous, impactful thing that you do every single day on the planet. So when we talk about be bold to change, I think we already know the answer to that question. The answer is in this room. It is women. It is the children that we're raising, and it is the men that we choose to associate with that are going to change this world. I believe that the solution to all of the problems that we have is knowing how to listen to that who I am voice, and then bringing that out into fruition into the world. But if you're spending so much of your time like I was worrying about what to eat and what not to eat and all of these things, you can't do it. When I decided to change what was on my plate and just make the final decision, I had a bright line. I had all these other food rules, all of them. And I said, my only food rule is going to be I'm only going to eat whole food plants. And I did that for the environment because I have a 5 and a 3-year-old, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. And about 4 months later, I remember talking to my mom, and I said, you know what? For the first time in 20 years, I haven't thought about throwing up my food or restricting my food or not eating for the day or not having seconds. My weight hadn't fluctuated at all, even though I really wasn't doing a whole lot. Well, running after the kids. And the sense of freedom and understanding that I had in that moment, I thought that's what I want for the people the women that I work with, is to free up all of that headspace that you spend worrying about what you are so that you can focus and bring into the world who you are. So I believe that if you change your plate and you start there, that you will change your life, you will change your health, you will change your brain. We know that. And if you do that, you will begin to live your purpose. And I believe if we do that, we'll all change the world together. That's it.